Chapter 1565. Chi was on the verge of death too compared to settling scores. It was better to save a person first. Especially seeing how anxious the Empress was, it was obvious that the situation was not too good. "Your Majesty, Empress." Suddenly, a nervous voice was heard. The Empress turned her head in the direction of the voice and immediately saw a palace maid stumbling in and running over. When she saw the palace maid's hurried actions, her heart fell as her face turned pale. "Anan, what happened?" Anan was the palace maid she had left behind to take care of Chinar. Now that she was nervously coming over, could something have happened to Chinar? "Empress, Princess." Anan's voice was a little crying. "It seems like the princess is about to die." "What?" The Empress felt her legs weaken and almost lost consciousness. Good thing Qi Fong reacted in time and helped support her body. "You said, China, what happened to her?" Qi Fang's face darkened. There is obviously the divine spirit fluid to help keep her life. Nothing would happen to Chinar for now. How was she suddenly on the verge of death? Anan's voice trembled. "I don't know. The princess woke up just now." However, she spat out a mouthful of blood and then lost consciousness again. Then, I went over to check the prince's breath. It was very weak, like she is about to die. After the palace maid said these words, the Empress felt her vision turning black and almost lost consciousness. She dug in her palms and kept herself awake with that piercing pain. "Go to Fenghuan Palace." Quickly return to Fenghuan Palace. The Empress gritted her teeth. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something as she held on to Feng Rooking's sleeve tightly. "Maiden Feng, please save Chinar. In the past, it was my fault. I misunderstood you and had almost harmed you. It was all my fault. I beg you, please, save her." Tears were flowing from her eyes as pain was written all over her pale face. In this life, the one she felt most sorry about was Chinar. As the saying goes, crying children have milk to drink. Yuer had been mischievous since he was a child and liked to cry and complain. Therefore, her love and energy were all spent on Yuer. As for Chinar, she was an extremely obedient and mature child, so she paid less attention to her. Me for extra chapters. It was because she was too matured and had never caused anyone to worry about her. She was not one to cause unnecessary troubles. Therefore, she felt that she didn't need to worry about her. However, no matter what, Chinar was her daughter. It was the child she carried for 10 months and the child she gave birth to. Now that she heard such bad news, her heart hurt so badly, like it was shrinking, and the tears could not stop flowing. "All right." Feng Ruching lowered her gaze as she looked at the old courtiers who were held mid-air by Qing Han's vines. Soon, she retracted her gaze and looked at the palace maid, Anan. "If you don't wish for her to really die, lead me to her quickly." "All right." Anan regained her senses and responded. She even totally forgot to formally excuse herself and brought Feng Ruching in the direction of Fenghuan Palace immediately. Qi Fong saw the direction in which Feng Ruching headed to and was just about to say something. However, this time, he did not say a word, taking into account the Empress' feelings. "Empress, we should also go. Get lost." The Empress immediately raised her hand and pushed Qi Fong aside. Her footsteps were unsteady. Even if she was falling, she would not allow Qi Fong to touch her. "Empress." Qi Fang's heart clenched. He looked the Empress back as she left determinately and felt a nagging feeling like he had lost something. The Empress did not falter in her steps. However, her voice was somewhat desolate. "Everyone knows that I am favored by you, and countless people are envious of this. I also used to think so too. I thought you loved Yuer as much as I did, but now I understand. You have many children after all. How can you ever be like me?" This time, Chinar is also implicated in this. Yet your Majesty is still thinking about making things difficult for this maiden here. If Chinar can't survive this time, I will never forgive you for as long as I live. Chapter 1566. Say it again, I'll never forgive you if something bad happens to Chinar. The Empress left without looking back. She sounded so firm, as if she was determined not to turn back regardless of what Qi Fong said. In Fenghuan Palace, the palace servants were guarding the door, and when they saw On Nan coming to Feng Ruching, they all took a few steps to the side, bowing their heads in respect. On Nan bowed to Feng Ruching and pushed the door. At a glance, Feng Ruching saw the little girl lying weakly on the bed. The little girl's face was pale, and there was still blood on the bedsheet. "Has anyone been here before?" Feng Ruching asked. Expressionlessly, On Nan was startled. Noble consort Lin came just now, but she didn't approach Princess. "I see." Feng Ruching's eyes were cold. "Leave first." "Yes, Maiden Feng." On Nan bowed her head and left. She did not know who Maiden Feng was, but the Empress trusted her so much, so she must have great abilities. When On Nan was about to leave the room, she heard the young girl's voice again coming from behind her. "No one shall be allowed to come in." On Nan was slightly stunned. She was somewhat surprised as she looked at Feng Ruching. However, she did not say anything in the end and quickly left, closing the door of the room. After On Nan had left the room, she looked up and saw the Empress rushing over. She was followed by Qi Feng and a group of ministers who looked somewhat worried. After all, Qi Qiner was the princess of this kingdom. Now that she was dying, these ministers had to come and wait patiently. "How is Qina?" Qi Feng took a step forward. His cold face was filled with worry. "I have brought the imperial physician to treat Qiner immediately." "Your Majesty." On Nan bowed, cold sweat beading on her forehead. Just now, Maiden Feng said that no one is allowed to enter. Insolent. Qi Feng was so furious that his robes were lifted in the wind. "I want to see my own daughter. Who dares to stop me?" He was the emperor of Tianling Kingdom. No one could stop him. "Me for extra chapters." The Empress raised her eyes and sneered. "Your Majesty, your people have already treated Qiner with divine spirit fluid. But now divine spirit fluid isn't working. What else do you think you can use to save her?" "But my imperial physician is always better than that little girl." Qi Feng did not understand why the Empress trusted this little girl so much. What else did this girl have besides the ability to command spirit beasts? Speaking of spirit beasts, Qi Feng trembled. It seemed that in the entire land of no return, only the Nan family had this skill. If he remembered correctly, Maiden Feng's husband was named Nan. No. The old master of the Nan family had only one son in his life. They were the only ones who could have the surname Nan among that Nan family. Qi Feng had never heard of anyone named Nan Xian. Furthermore, those spirit beasts obeyed Feng Ruching's orders. From the day at the city gate, he could tell that the group of spirit beasts was not Nan Xian's. Therefore, this was probably only a coincidence. He had not heard the Nan family having an illegitimate son. Chapter 1567. Say it again, too. However, the old master of the Nan family once had an unfilial daughter who planned to kill him and was expelled from the family. But there has been no news of her since then. But even if Nan Xian was somewhat related to her, he would not have Nan as a surname and certainly would follow his father's surname. There was not only one Nan family in Land of No Return, but all the other Nan families are unknown. The only one anyone would think of when mentioning the Nan family was that one. Yuer said that she could save Qiner. The Empress clenched her fists tightly. She was also worried, but because of Feng Ruching's words, she did not dare to rush in, afraid that she would be angry and refuse to treat Qiner. Likewise, she would not let anyone enter to disturb her. "Empress, do you really believe the little prince's words?" An old minister covered in bruises sneered. "The little prince has always been lawless and unreasonable. How can you believe his words? It's better to send the imperial physician to take a look at her. Otherwise, I'm afraid she really can't be saved." "Empress, you are the prince's mother. I believe that you are not trying to kill the princess. Please step aside and let the imperial physician enter." The Empress blocked the doorway, trembling. She had no other way out. Feng Ruching was her only hope, so she must not give up. "I trust Yuer." Yuer was her son, no matter how many mistakes he had made. As long as he made some improvements, she was willing to trust him. "Empress." Qi Feng's handsome face turned pale. He stared at the Empress, concerned. "You have to get out of the way, or Qiner really has no hope." The Empress' gaze was cold as she looked at Qi Feng and sneered. You want your imperial physician to save her? Can the imperial physician save my Qiner? If he really can save her, he would have done it long ago. Now, I will not let anyone in to harm my daughter. Her voice was firm and clear. The power in her firm voice was enough to make the crowd tremble in fear. General manner. Me for extra chapters. Feng Lianya's hand were covered in bandages. She sneered and asked, How's the palace? A woman dressed in green stood in front of her. She did have a beautiful face, but she was not pleasing to the eyes. Her eyes were cold, expressionlessly. I've helped you. I couldn't kill that fatty, but killing Qiner is considered favor. She wanted to use the guards to kill that little fatty. However, when she was about to hit the little fatty with the cane, Qiner had suddenly jumped on him, causing the cane to hit Qiner's head. However, the Emperor has divine spirit fluid that can save Qiner, but I've already given noble consort Lin an item to kill Qiner. Feng Lianyi lowered her eyes. Initially, she did not want to use this person to kill the little fatty. She did not make any move even after being bullied and receiving so much humiliation over the years. However, this time, that fatty boy, Qiyu, had repeatedly confronted her on behalf of Feng Ruqing, pushing her to the limit. She had no choice but to do so. Why don't you just help me kill that stupid emperor and the empress? Feng Lianya's eyes were filled with hatred. The emperor is quite easy to deal with. At least he knows who is right and who is wrong. But the empress is not sensible at all. She always protects that little fatty. If they die and that fatty loses his support, he'll be at my mercy and will be humiliated. Chapter 1568. Say it again. 3. The woman in green frowned. Do you think Tianya will let this happen? All my crimes will be exposed if I provoke Tianya. So, how am I going to get revenge? Feng Lianya's heart trembled. She looked up at the green-dressed woman's beautiful face. At this moment, she was a little confused about whether it was right or wrong to plot something with this woman. What about Feng Ruqing? Help me kill her. If she dies, nothing will happen. No, the woman shook her head. Why? I'm not sure. I have a feeling that she's dangerous, and the man with her is even more dangerous. I can't take that risk. Obviously, she was more powerful than Feng Ruqing, but somehow she felt that this woman was dangerous and could not be messed with. She was not willing to mess with her for Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi sneered. Feng Ruqing is dangerous? That's the most ridiculous joke I'd ever heard. It's obvious that she just doesn't want to help me. Of course, this was something that Feng Lianyi did not dare to say. After all, the woman in front of her could easily squeeze her to death like squeezing a fly. It was only because she needed something from Feng Lianyi that she had agreed to deal with the little fatty on her behalf. And the woman looked at Feng Lianyi coldly. Your father, he has brought that woman back. If you want to help your mother, you have to listen to me. Feng Lianyi stiffened. She raised her head in shock as she looked up at the woman. What did you say? That bitch is back. Me for extra chapters. How dare you, father? All these women who take other people's men are sluts. Feng Lianyi angrily tightened her grip around the cup in her hand and wanted to smash it on the ground, but she suddenly remembered that she was still in general manner and hastily put it down again. The woman laughed coldly. Don't forget, your mother is actually the man-stealer. They were a lovely couple back then, but your mother came and ruined their relationship. How can you call that woman a bitch who steals other people's man? Feng Lianyi sneered. A lovely couple. She's just a bitch who interferes with other people's life. A marriage without the blessing from the elders. And you still have the nerve to mention love? My mother is the one my grandparents approved of, and that woman was nothing. No one in the family approved of her. So she had no right marrying my father. Father has always loved that woman. Back then, if grandfather had not threatened him with that woman's life, perhaps father would never have agreed to marry mother. Bitch. Obviously, no one in the family likes her. She shouldn't have appeared again. So why did she come back to father? The woman in green said coldly, This is general manner, so you must control your emotions. If Tianya notices something amiss, don't blame me for killing you first. Feng Lianyi trembled. She then pursed her lips and lowered her head. It's not my fault. I never wanted to go against anyone in my life. It was these people who wouldn't let me go first. As was the case with Feng Ruqing, so was that bitch. She had no intention of antagonizing that bitch, but that woman still came back, which was clearly a deliberate attempt to harm her mother. Why would she show up when she knew her father was obsessed with her? Chapter 1569. Say it again, for Feng Lianyi clenched her fists tightly as her breath was somewhat heavy. Who's that? Suddenly, the woman's ears twitched as she heard something. She turned her head in panic and looked in the direction where the sound came. Squeak! A little mouse came out, and after it saw that someone had spotted it, it hurriedly turned away and disappeared into the rat hole. It's just a mouse. Why are you so jumpy? Feng Lianyi frowned. General Manor has always been strictly guarded. No one will dare to eavesdrop, so you don't need to worry. The woman looked around in disgust. Why is there a mouse in your room? I don't know. I'll ask my servant to buy some rat poison later. Feng Lianyi did not care about that. She was not scared of mice, just a little disgusted. At this time, a man in white robes stood at the corner of the wall outside General Manor. He heard a squeaking sound and saw a mouse rushing to him. A small green head came out of the man's sleeve and looked straight down at the mouse. How's it going? Did you find out anything? Squeak! The little mouse squeaked. Qing Zhu listened to it and turned to Nan Xian. Feng Lianyi is cozying up to General Tianya because she seems to have some hidden secrets, but the little mouse didn't hear those secrets. Nan Xian's gaze grew colder, scaring Qing Zhu. Qing Zhu quickly continued. However, I found out something else. Feng Lianyi's father brought back a woman who seems to be his first wife not long ago. Could it be Xiaoya? Nan Xian did not say anything. His gaze was unreadable. Master! Qing Zhu looked at Nan Xian carefully. Shouldn't we go back and ask the princess for some rewards? As soon as it was done speaking, the coldness in the man's eyes dissipated. He then softly responded, All right. Qing Zhu was speechless. Me for extra chapters. So, Master was silent just now because he was thinking about how to be rewarded? Nan Xian no longer said anything more. He picked Qing Zhu up and turned away, disappearing from the street. Fengyuan Palace. The situation was still grim. The Empress blocked the entrance to her room, not allowing anyone to come closer. Qi Feng frowned. He seemed a bit pissed with the Empress right now. However, in the end, he could not bring himself to vent his anger on her. The palace servants and eunuchs all kneeled in fright, and no one dared to make sound. Empress, a familiar voice came from the back. I thought that you would feel sorry for your daughter and treat her quickly, but I didn't expect you to be like this. Her words dripped with sarcasm. When the Empress turned her head, she saw noble consort Lin with third prince a short distance away. Compared to the overbearing and aggressive little Prince Qi Yu and the bullying fourth prince, this third prince was much more gentle and elegant. He was the perfect candidate for the future emperor. If there were no empress, Qi Feng would have installed third prince as the crown prince. Empress, third prince's eyes were filled with worry. Doesn't Empress feel pity for Qiner? I think Qi Yu trusts the girl in the room too much, making the Empress believe in her too. Qi Yu is still young, but everyone knows he loves beauty, right? But that's not his fault. Chapter 1570. Say it again, V. The minister's faces darkened as soon as they heard those words. A demon girl. She's a demon girl. Your Majesty, she must be severely punished. The little prince is only 9 years old, and he still does not understand anything about love. How could he fall in love with a demon? This demon girl must have bewitched him with something. This demon is pregnant, and the one in her womb is not something good. We must kill both of them before they cause any more harm to our kingdom. Bang! The door of the room was violently kicked open. A young girl in a red dress with a beautiful face stood expressionlessly at the door. Her eyes were fiercely cold and angry. What did you just say about my child? Those ministers shut their mouths for a moment. They remembered being hung up and whipped earlier. Third prince glanced at her stunningly beautiful face. His eyes slid down to her belly. Seeing that she was pregnant, he could not help but feel sorry for her again. No wonder my little brother has been going to this girl a lot lately. She's really a true beauty. It was not even an exaggeration to say that she was the most beautiful woman in Wushang City. It's a pity she's already pregnant, and a soiled woman is not allowed to stay inside the palace. What a pity indeed. Everyone was silent. Feng Ruqing walked toward the old minister who had cursed her just now. Can you repeat what you said just now? Before the minister could say anything more, Feng Ruqing had already kicked him, sending him flying out. The minister spurted a mouthful of blood. He had just managed to stand up when countless vines came out of the ground and hung his body upside down in midair. I said, repeat it. Feng Ruqing's gaze was cold. It'll kill you if you don't repeat it. Other ministers did not speak and subconsciously took a few steps back. This violent woman, she's so scary. Me for extra chapters. How can her husband live with her? Your Majesty, the minister cried helplessly. Please save me. Qi Feng frowned. His minister had indeed said something terrible, but this was a palace after all. Someone was beating his people in front of him, the emperor. This matter could ruin his reputation as a ruler in the future. However, when Qi Feng was about to speak, his eyes glanced toward the door. He suddenly saw a thin figure standing behind it, staring at them. He was speechless, and his body stiffened, somewhat shocked. Your Majesty, the minister did not notice Qi Qiner. He only saw that Qi Feng did not pay any attention to him as he cried out, Please save me quickly. The minister was brought down to the ground so hard that his body trembled and tears flowed as he winced in pain. Don't make me repeat myself. Say it. Feng Ruqing's face was expressionless. The minister's lips trembled as he weakly opened his mouth. This demon is pregnant, and the one in her womb is not something good. Snap. Countless vines suddenly whipped the minister's body. Ah! The minister shouted painfully. He rolled on the ground with tears and snot streaming down his face. Chapter 1571. Keep waiting. Feng Ruqing walked toward the minister expressionlessly. You curse my daughter? And how dare you curse twice? The minister was stunned. Isn't that what you asked me to say? I've said it, and now you are treating me like this. You're a bully. Feng Ruqing turned sideways to look at the ministers who spoke just now. All of you have also cursed me back then. I recognize all of your voices. Now, I want you to say again what you've said about me. The ministers were speechless. This woman will beat us to death if we say it again, but she will still beat us if we don't. What should we do? All the ministers were shivering as they quickly turned to Qi Feng, pleading for help. But they suddenly found that Qi Feng was staring at the doorway happily. The ministers were slightly startled. They, too, turned to look at what Qi Feng was looking at and saw the cute little girl. The little girl's eyes were slightly timid, wanting to come out, but also a little afraid, standing restlessly at the door. Qiner! Tears flowed down from the empress' eyes. She rushed forward and pulled Qi Qiner into her embrace. Her body trembled a bit, but the weight on her heart was finally lifted. Noble consort Lin froze, and her breath grew heavier. She clenched her fists tightly, and her face was slightly livid. That person said that the poison could kill Qi Qiner, but why is she still alive? Third Prince looked surprised as he turned to Feng Ruqing. His eyes sunk, wondering what he was thinking about. She's fine. Feng Ruqing calmly looked back at the empress. I need to go now. She had been gone for quite some time, and Nan Xian must have been worried about me for extra chapters. Thank you. Thank you. The empress was so grateful that she no longer knew what to say. Maiden Feng, I've treated you badly back then. I did not save her because of you. Feng Ruqing's tone was calm. She did not save people because of other people. She only saved the people she wanted to save. Every time she saw Qi Qiner, she would always think that little girl dire. And even her heart softened a little. Oh, one more thing, she paused. Qi Qiner was poisoned. It was snake venom. She glanced at the ministers coldly and walked away. Those old ministers did not dare to speak again, shrinking their necks, wishing to find a hole in the ground to hide in. Fortunately, Feng Ruqing did not stay any longer. She left after giving them one last glance. The Empress' face instantly turned cold. She released the little girl in her arms and turned to Anan. Tell me what's going on. How did the princess get poisoned? Anan panicked and kneeled on the ground. Her face was as pale as paper. I don't know. Noble Consort Lin came just now, and then that happened to the princess after she left. Noble Consort Lin. The Empress' eyes snapped open, and she stared at Noble Consort Lin angrily. Your Majesty, Noble Consort Lin hurriedly turned to Qifeng. Your Majesty, I'm innocent. I was afraid that the Empress would accuse me of wanting to harm the princess, so I didn't dare to get too close to her. But I didn't expect that she would still blame me. Qifeng lightly frowned, lowering his eyes to look at Anan, who was kneeling on the ground. Did Noble Consort Lin come to China? I want to know the truth. Chapter 1572. Keep waiting too. Anan trembled and bit her lip. No, but today, Noble Consort Lin's body smells of perfumed powder. I only used a fragrant powder, not poison. Your Majesty, you have to do justice on my behalf. Noble Consort Lin kneeled in panic. Her beautiful face looked miserable and pitiful. Qifeng sighed and turned to the Empress. Empress, there must be a misunderstanding. Noble Consort Lin didn't go near Qiner. It was not her. The Empress did not speak. Qifeng continued. Don't worry, I will investigate this matter thoroughly, and before he could finish his sentences, the Empress had already pulled Qiner's hand and walked to the room, slamming it shut. This matter was definitely related to Noble Consort Lin, but the Emperor had made it clear that he would not do justice for the Empress. Although she was the Empress, she did not have much power and could only rely on the Emperor's favor to support her in the palace. Mother, Qiner pulled the Empress' sleeve. I'm fine. Don't worry, Mother. She pursed her pink lips and thought for a moment before saying, Noble Consort Lin is not a good person, and Third Prince is also a bully. He's not like what people think of him. Sister Shaoqing said that she had to learn to complain and not be bullied like before. The Empress pulled Qiner into her arms and smiled bitterly. I envy Maiden Feng. She has a husband, but she still can live freely and can rely on herself. Unlike us, who rely on the Emperor's favor. Rely on a man. Qin, the Empress bowed her head and looked at the little girl in her arms. You can go to Maiden Feng later. She's a great person. All right, Qina nodded. Although I was unconscious, I could still hear everything. I also knew that it was Mother who fed me divine spirit fluid. I became worse after Noble Consort Lin visited me. And then Sister Shaoqing fed me some soup, which tasted better than divine spirit fluid. It was so delicious and made me feel much better. The little girl had an innocent smile on her face with a pair of large, bright eyes. The Empress was stunned. It looks like Maiden Feng knows how to make divine spirit fluid, and it's as pure as the divine spirit fluid for back then. Qiner, you mustn't let anyone know about this. If your father asks, you say that Maiden Feng is a skilled physician. What? Qiner asked blankly. Me for extra chapters. The Empress sneered. Isn't the Emperor going to protect Feng Liani? And he helps her in every way that he can. He didn't even drive her away after she had made such a big mistake. I'd like to see how far he can go for Feng Liani. He'll make him lose all his chances. Qiner was a little confused. Her mother was really angry this time. All right, Mother. He'll listen to you, and I won't let anyone know about this. Qiner smiled as bright as sunshine, sweeping away the rage inside the Empress' heart. As soon as Feng Ruqing returned to her manor, she immediately saw a man standing in the doorway. The man was so dazzling under the setting sun. State Preceptor. Feng Ruqing smiled widely and pounced onto him. Nanxian stretched out his arms to catch the young girl who had jumped into his arms. He was cautious, afraid that he would hurt the child in her belly. You're back, Nanxian smiled. His voice was as gentle as the spring breeze. Yes. Feng Ruqing smiled as she hugged Nanxian's waist. Her eyes were fixed upon the man in front of her. Your smile is so pretty. In this life, It'll only smile for you. The man stroked the hair on the girl's forehead. His cold gaze turned gentle only when facing this young girl. Did you get any news? Did you find out anything weird about Feng Lianyi? Feng Ruqing frowned. She always felt that Feng Lianyi had something to do with what had happened to the little fatty in Xiaoya. Therefore, she immediately agreed to stay in Wushang City to investigate Feng Lianyi. We got some news, Nan Xian smiled. Feng Lianyi intentionally approached Tianya, but we failed to find out why she did that, because Qing Zhu is useless. Qing Zhu had just woken up. It opened its eyes in a daze when it heard Nan Xian's words. Qing Zhu was so frightened that its neck shrank and was about to cry. Master, how is that my fault? It was obviously that Mouse's. Nan Xian glanced at the snake coldly. Qing Zhu stopped abruptly, faking a smile. Master is right. I'm useless. I can't even find out more information. Still, Master is awesome. Super awesome. He asked me to threaten those little mice to help us find out about Feng Lianyi. Nan Xian was speechless. This flattery is a bit too much. He cleared his throat and turned to Feng Ruqing. Her mother is a concubine. Her father brought back a woman some time ago and said that she was his real wife. She then disappeared for many years because she was forbidden to come back. I wonder if she is the person you're looking for. Feng Ruqing's eyes were cold. Whether it was really Xiaoya or not, she must find out about this. Do you know where Feng Lianyi's family is from? She had asked Feng Lianqing this question before, but Feng Lianqing did not know anything about it and said that Feng Lianyi was an orphan. So, only Feng Lianyi knew about this. Or maybe Tianya. Feng Ruqing had a bit of a headache. Tianya had left before she came to Wushang City. Moreover, this land of no return was so big. She could not possibly cover the whole area and ask everyone, have you seen Tianya? Me for extra chapters. Therefore, she could only stay in Wushang City and wait until he returned. I don't know. He didn't mention it. Nan Xian remained calm. Feng Ruqing's frown harder. Feng Lianyi didn't mention it. So, how am I supposed to find Xiaoya? Suddenly, a cold light flashed on her eyes. Keep waiting. Qing Zhu, find some birds and deal with them. Ask them to keep an eye on Feng Lianyi at all times. I don't believe that I can't find even a piece of small information about her family background. Princess Qing Zhu pouted. Why don't we find someone to catch Feng Lianyi and torture her to make her confess? Feng Ruqing was stunned. Since when did this snake become so stupid? You think that with the hatred that Feng Lianyi has for us, you'll be able to force her to confess with just severe torture? What about finding some random person to force her? We won't allow her to know that it was us. No. Nan Xian glanced at Qing Zhu again. She won't tell. Why? Because the one behind her won't let her talk. She won't dare. That person dared to provoke Tianya, so she must be quite strong. It seemed like she needed a pawn, and that pawn was not only Feng Lianyi. Chapter 1574. Keep waiting, for she was worried that if Feng Lianyi revealed it, it would cause trouble and implicate her as well. Therefore, that woman would never let Feng Lianyi say anything about it. So, even if she was harshly tortured, there was no way that Feng Lianyi would say it. Feng Ruqing nodded. Xiao Zhu, your brain is not even half as good as my state preceptor's. Qing Zhu was speechless. It wished it could destroy this lovebird. State preceptor, I'm tired. Feng Ruqing stretched her waist and leaned on the man's chest. Let's go back to our room and rest first. Ever since she was pregnant, all the spiritual qi she cultivated was absorbed by that little thing in her belly. Not only that, she would always feel tired, as if she had not gotten enough sleep. At night, the moonlight streamed in through the window over the two people who were sleeping in each other's arms. A dark glow appeared at the young girl's abdomen. That glow was not noticeable and could not be detected if one was not paying attention to it. Subsequently, the spiritual qi in the room gathered toward her abdomen as if there was a mouth that swallowed all the spiritual qi in this world. But the young girl was still sleeping soundly. Even if the heavens and earth were falling apart at the moment, it would not be able to wake her up. The man lying next to her opened his eyes slowly. He stared at the spiritual qi, which had been absorbed by the one in Feng Rooking's belly. His eyes gradually narrowed, and a glint of light flashed from his cold eyes. "Master!" Qing Zhu came from under the bed. It was a little sleepy, as if it had not woken up yet. The snake was a bit confused. What happened? Nancian did not answer it, and his expression was unreadable. Me for extra chapters. I feel like Princess has been acting a bit strange since a month ago. Princess isn't a lazy person, but she has passed all the herbal garden work to those spirit beasts since she came to Wushang City. When she was in Luyun Kingdom back then, she would still do it herself. But now she did not even pick and plant the spirit herbs. Spirit herbs were so important to her. Therefore, she had recruited many spirit beasts and even asked the little fatty and the others to take care of the herbs garden for her. And she's always grumpy in the morning, forbidding others to disturb her sleep. Even the movements in her belly can't wake her up. Qing Zhu frowned as it stared at the young girl's belly that was already 5 months old. Could it be that Princess is pregnant with a little demon? Nancian glanced at Qing Zhu coldly, scaring Qing Zhu into shutting its mouth. It then laughed awkwardly and said, "I'm just kidding, just kidding." Nancian caressed the young girl's abdomen. His handsome face looked more gentle under the cold moonlight. He smiled faintly. "Master, what are you doing?" Qing Zhu's body shivered after seeing Nancian smile. It could feel that its master was a little scary these few days. Nancian withdrew his hand and slowly closed his eyes. Qing Zhu was stunned and shocked. "Master, are you taking out your main soul again? Last time you did it to save Princess, this time you." Qing Zhu could not say anything more because Nancian was no longer able to answer it. In the Dantian, the black sword emitted a faint black light, as if it was echoing something. Not far away, a small hand reached out, and that small hand was able to touch the odd black sword directly through the Dantian. But at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared. A man with white hair and dressed in white looked as stunning as an immortal. His face was identical to the state preceptor's, but he had a bit of devilish charm. That little hand seemed to be frightened by something. It panicked and withdrew its hand, but its mouth did not stop moving as it gulped down the spiritual qi that was absorbed into his body. Such a greedy little thing. This was the man's first impression of the little beggar. He frowned and raised his hand. A light breeze passed, and a transparent barrier was formed inside the young girl's body. This barrier cannot stop the light of the black sword, but I can block all the spiritual qi from entering it. The little beggar panicked and could not open his eyes. He could not even make a sound, so he could only wave his arms in protest. The man ignored him, looking sideways at the spiritual qi that had become hexagonal, and gently pointed his finger at the Dantian. "That's the place you should go." He was unsure whether it was because of this little beggar or something else, but those spiritual qi were still continuously entering Feng Rooking's body. This spiritual qi obediently entered Feng Rooking's Dantian. The man's face eased up quite a bit. He put one hand behind his back and looked at the little beggar behind him before turning around and left. The world would never have imagined that a genius who should have shocked the world with his talent from birth would completely disappear because of what Nancian had done to him. He even needed to start cultivating from scratch, just like normal people. Me for extra chapters. Initially, if this little beggar were born in a random family, he would be an amazingly strong kid. But unfortunately, the little beggar had met a man like Nancian who loved his wife more than his life. This little beggar had absorbed all the spiritual qi cultivated by Feng Rooking, and Nancian could not hold back anymore. He had endured it for quite a long time until today he finally made a move. His wife would always be his top priority. As Feng Rooking and Nancian's child, his strength naturally would not have been too bad. It was just that the development of his power would start later than now. One had martial strength since birth, while another one had to wait until he could crawl and walk before he could start cultivating. Of course, the former was more powerful. Inside the room, Nancian slowly opened his eyes and smiled. "Master," Qing Zhu looked at Nancian tensely. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Nancian's voice remained calm. Only then did Qing Zhu let out a sigh of relief. "Back then, You were badly injured after you took out your main soul and had to hide from Princess to heal your injury. But this time, I feel like you don't seem to have any serious problems with that. Perhaps his master's strength was not what it used to be nowadays. By the way, what did you do just now? Qingzhu asked after a moment of silence. Chapter 1576. Keep waiting 6. Suddenly, a booming sound rang out, frightening Qingzhu so much it almost rolled out of the room. It turned back and looked at Feng Ruqing, who was still sleeping. Princess, she broke through? Impossible. Since becoming pregnant, all her spiritual qi has been absorbed by her child. How could she make a breakthrough? Yes, Nincian responded faintly. I want to put a seal on that little thing from touching the spiritual qi, so Qing'er will be able to make a breakthrough, and she can use some ability from this little thing to make the cultivation faster. Initially, the baby could only absorb the spiritual qi that Feng Ruqing had cultivated, but now somehow it could absorb it on its own. This could be considered as compensation to Feng Ruqing. After all, this little thing had taken a lot of spiritual qi from Feng Ruqing, so it must all be returned. Qingzhu was speechless. Master, is it really a good idea to trick your own child like this? Aren't you afraid your child won't accept you as his father when he's born? Master, this little thing has already behaved like a demon even before he is born. If you treat him like this, he might hate you when he's born. He won't, Nincian said with certainty. Qingzhu was dumbfounded. What? Shaoqing will not allow him to hate me. Qingzhu was speechless. Annoying lovebirds. Qingzhu simply ignored Nincian and slid under the bed, hugging its small pillow to go back to sleep. The next morning, Feng Ruqing woke up with a shock. She noticed something was not quite right. It seemed like she had made a breakthrough and achieved 2 ranks in a row, directly from lower to advanced holy warrior tier. Nincian, it seems like I made a breakthrough. Nincian smiled faintly and pulled her into his arms. I know. Feng Ruqing was stunned. I talked to our child yesterday, and he was very reasonable. He has stopped absorbing your spiritual qi and returned what he has taken from you. Really? Feng Ruqing asked in disbelief. Me for extra chapters. Yes, it's true. Oh, Feng Ruqing nodded. Looks like this little thing isn't as greedy as I thought, and he even knows how to return the spiritual qi to me. Nincian, how did you communicate with him? Is he a boy or a girl? Nincian was startled. He was silent for a moment before he said, it was Qingzhu that communicated with him. As for how, Qingzhu has thick skin. No matter how I whip it, it won't tell me what method it has used. Qingzhu had just crawled out from under the bed and heard this. It was so scared that it immediately shrank back, refusing to come out again. Qingzhu forgot to ask about its gender. Feng Ruqing frowned. How dare it forget to ask the child's gender? How could it forget something so important? Qingzhu. Suddenly, Feng Ruqing smiled. Come out. We need to talk. No, I'm not coming out. Not even if you threaten me with death. That bastard master framed me. You're not coming out? Feng Ruqing smiled, but her expression turned even more gloomy. Nincian, find some female snakes to go in and drag it out. Qingzhu was shocked. It pondered for a long time before silently coming out from under the bed and asked pitifully, Princess, is something wrong? I will not ask about how you can communicate with the child. But now, help me ask if she's a cute, pretty, and obedient little girl or a boy. Chapter 1577. Feng Lianya's Hidden Agenda. Qingzhu trembled. It already knew the answer that she wanted to hear without even thinking about it. And even if it said that it had not communicated with the child, and it was its master who had used his soul to go inside her body, she still would not believe it. Qingzhu would still have to be blamed for this. Actually, I already knew. Qingzhu laughed awkwardly. She's a girl. She's really a girl. If it dared to say the word boy, the princess might just be the first to slaughter it. Really? Feng Ruqing smiled happily. Then, I'll forgive her for what she had done to me before. It's not a problem if she doesn't return her spiritual qi to me. Nincian lowered his eyes and stared at the woman beside him, smirking. Spirit Beast Mountain. An old man in the red robe stood on top of the mountain. He frowned with his back facing the strong wind behind him. Feng Lianqing rushed over and finally saw his master. He stopped and thought for a moment before walking toward the old man. "Master, I finally found you." This old man ran so fast. He was the one who had asked Feng Lianqing to come to him, and after a long search, he had finally found his master. Of course, this was something that Feng Lianqing did not dare to say. His handsome face was filled with a smile as gentle as the spring breeze. "Lianqing, how has master treated you all these years?" Tianya stood firmly with one hand on his back. His face remained calm. Feng Lianqing was somewhat confused with what Tianya was going to say and hesitantly asked, "Master, just say what you want me to do. I will always listen to master." "Oh," the old man laughed. "I was chasing a black dragon just now, but it ran in, and I've lost track of it. You go and help me draw him out. The place inside is too small. I can't fight there." Feng Lianqing's handsome face twitched slightly as he looked at the wanton smile on Tianya's face. He then turned around and walked toward the cave that Tianya was pointing at. The cave was dark and damp, and it also emitted a foul stench. No wonder Tianya refused to take a step inside and wait for him to come. Me for extra chapters. A few moments later, Feng Lianqing walked out of it, carrying a big black snake in his hand. "Master, is this the black dragon that you're talking about?" Feng Lianqing was on the verge of tears. How could his master mistake a snake for a black dragon? Tianya frowned as he stared at the snake in Feng Lianqing's hand. He shook his head and sighed. "Just now it ran away when it saw me. My old eyes aren't too good. I thought it was a dragon. So I have chased after it, but I didn't expect to chase after it for nothing. I don't know exactly where that black dragon ran off to." "Master, with your status and position, why didn't you order the 4 kingdoms to search for that dragon?" Feng Lianqing looked a little bewildered. "You looking for the black dragon like this is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Oh, what have that black dragon done to you? Did it take away your cat? Why you want him so bad? It might know how to leave land of no return." 25 years. Unknowingly, it had been nearly 25 years since he came to land of no return. He did not know whether his family in Songyu mainland could still remember him or not. But you're right. Perhaps this black dragon has left the Spirit Beast Mountain. It's pointless for me to keep looking for it. "Lianqing, let's go." Tianya raised his eyebrow and asked, "Did something happen in general manner when I was away?" Chapter 1578. Feng Lianya's Hidden Agenda. Feng Lianqing paused. He couldn't help but think of Feng Lianya's behavior some time ago. He pursed his lips and answered honestly. "Master, Feng Lianyi. She had caused trouble some time ago." Tianya stopped in his tracks and frowned. His smile slowly disappeared. "What happened?" Actually, after a moment of silence, Feng Lianqing finally told Tianya everything that Feng Lianyi had done. When he surreptitiously raised his eyes, he saw that Tianya's old face had suddenly turned cold. "Master," Feng Lianqing felt uneasy. "That was Lianya's first mistake. So, can we give her another chance? I have asked her to apologize, and she listened to me, so I guess she's already changed. After all, everyone makes mistakes, and the most important thing is that you learn from it and are willing to change." He would not deceive his master, so he could not lie just for Feng Lianya's sake. But Feng Lianyi was a childhood friend, and they had grown up together, so he would naturally speak up for her. Since Feng Lianyi was willing to change, what was the harm in giving her one more chance? The most detestable kind of person was one who knew his mistakes but refused to change. Tianya's face remained cold as he looked at Feng Lianqing. You know, nothing can be accomplished without norms. Feng Lianqing understood what Tianya was trying to say. He trembled and bit his lips. "But Master, Lianyi didn't mean it this time. She did it because of me. If Master wants to punish, then just punish me." Tianya sneered. "Lianqing, I know you don't like to lie, so you told me the truth. Do you think I'm a fool? If she did it for you, she could have taken all the blame on herself. Maybe I could still believe that she really wanted the best for you. But now, why did she let an innocent man take the blame? He was the emperor in Luyun Kingdom, and the rules were strict, especially to those courtiers who were not allowed to make any mistakes. Now he was General Tianya of Wushang City. Me for extra chapters. The rules for the army were more strict. Otherwise, how could he control so many people? If it was someone else who had made such a mistake, he might still forgive that person. But this time, that person was Feng Lieni. If he did not strictly punish his men, how can the people respect him as a general? Lianxing, I have no children here. Tianya's gaze was stern. So, I am raising you as an heir, and sooner or later, I will have to leave this place and go home. But you are too soft and too easy to forgive people. A soft heart man is not suitable for the position that I hold today. A person who was too soft was easily pinned down by those around him. As a general, he needed to be thick-faced and selfless. This was what he had taught the people of the Nalen family back then. Now Feng Lianxing wanted him to defend somebody who had violated the law. Ridiculous. How could he do such a thing? Lieni has to be punished. Tianya sighed. Do you know why I'm strict with Lieni but soft with that girl you are? Feng Lianxing looked up in surprise. Because of love and responsibility? After all, Lieni was from General Manor, and Hellion Yu was the Hellion family's young lady. So naturally, Master would not be too strict with Hellion Yu. What love and responsibility? That's all bullshit. Tianya smiled coldly. Feng Lieni seems like a straightforward and harmless girl, but in reality, she must be strictly disciplined. She was quite innocent when she was young, but we can see her real character as she grows up. So, if she is not strictly disciplined, she will start acting recklessly. Chapter 1579. Feng Lian's Hidden Agenda 3, but Tian, you had forgotten that there was something deeply rooted, and that was genetics. No matter how strict the discipline was, it could not resist the inherited nature. As for Hellion Yu, Tian Ya's face softened a bit. This girl may look arrogant and wild, like a bully. However, people like her are simple. It is obvious when she likes or dislikes something. She knows right and wrong, and even if she causes a problem, it is still harmless, and nothing bad will happen. But Feng Lieni was different. If he had known that this girl was this manipulative, he would not take her in on a whim back then. Feng Lianxing spoke no further and lowered his eyes as if he was quietly pondering Tian Ya's words. He would not overthink if it were someone else who spoke these words to him, but it was his master who told him so. Feng Lieni, is she not as simple as I thought? Lianxing, Tianya smiled and turned to look at Feng Lianxing. That little girl Hellion Yu is not bad. You can think about it, or maybe I'll introduce my granddaughter to you later. At least you're better than the jerks out there. Feng Lianxing grew up in front of his eyes, so he knew him well. However, he did not know what type of man that his precious granddaughter looked for. Was she met a bad man? No way. Whoever bullies my granddaughter, he'll kill his whole family. Feng Lianxing was stunned. He cleared his throat and laughed awkwardly. Your granddaughter? How can you be sure your grandchild is a granddaughter? Perhaps bullshit. Tianya smashed his fist down angrily. I'm sure that my stupid son gave birth to a beautiful, lovely, and well-behaved granddaughter. If you speak nonsense again, don't ever dream to go back to General Manor. Just get out of there. Feng Lianxing touched his head. He looked at Tian Ya's angry face blankly. Tianya was respectable and would not be rude and overprotective. But now, he suddenly felt that if Tianya really had a granddaughter, perhaps, he would be just like that old master of the Hellion family, rude and protective and unable to distinguish between right and wrong. Me for extra chapters. However, he was kind of looking forward to that scenario, though. Let's go, Tianya frowned. I have to go back and see what kind of trouble Feng Lieni has gotten into this time. He somehow felt uneasy, especially since Feng Lianxing said this. He was panicking a little and needed to rush back to Wushang City. Since that day, when Feng Lianxing had somehow made a breakthrough, she felt that the little one in her belly had also calmed down a lot and was not making as much noise as it used to be. She even felt the sun in the sky was a little brighter than usual. Xiaoqing, Hellion Yu stood next to Feng Lianxing and turned her head to look at the young girl beside her. What had happened to the little fatty back then? Was it really related to Feng Lieni? Feng Lianxing stroked her chin. I guess so. Hellion Yu pursed her lips. I didn't think that Feng Lianyi was so bad back then. All the people in Wushang City thought that I was the only one who was bad. But what happened recently has really made me shocked, and only Brother Lianqing would defend her so much. In the past, when mentioning Feng Lianqing, Hellion, you would still turn red. But now, she was calm and felt nothing toward him. Chapter 1580. Feng Lianyi's hidden agenda, for even her heart did not hurt as much as before. And all of this was because of Feng Ruqing. The cultivation she had taught her was really useful, or at least made her understand that there were more meaningful things in her life than just men. Well, Feng Ruqing stood up from inside the pavilion. Let's go. Hellion Yu obediently followed Feng Ruqing as she stood up, silently following behind her. General manner. Feng Lianyi's face darkened, her hand tightly squeezing the teacup in her hand. That little girl, Qi Qiner, is still alive. And the person who had saved her was Feng Ruqing? If I continue like this, I will lose all the respect in Wushang City in the future. She took a deep breath and stood up from her chair. Since Feng Lianqing and that woman would not help her, she would find a way to do it herself. It was Feng Ruqing who had offended her first anyway. She was just treating her the way she deserved. Thinking of this, Feng Lianyi headed out the door. From afar, she could see the old housekeeper arranging the flowers and plants in the back garden. She smiled and walked toward the old housekeeper. Old housekeeper, when will General and Big Brother Feng return? When the old housekeeper turned back, he saw Feng Lianyi standing behind him. He smiled. I don't know. Does Maiden Lianyi have something to discuss with General? No. I'm just asking because I haven't seen General for a long time. Feng Lianyi smiled faintly. Do you know where General went? The old housekeeper smiled. Maiden Lianyi should not ask me because I don't know anything about it. Feng Lianyi's face stiffened. She also understood that asking him was useless. As long as Tianya would not return these few days, it was enough. If Tianya returned, many things would be revealed, so it would be hard for her to make any move. Me for extra chapters. I got it, thank you. Feng Lianyi smiled brightly. She stopped talking and walked away. She clenched her fists tightly as she walked past the old housekeeper. Her face turned cold as if there was a monstrous storm coming to her. Feng Ruqing, you have forced me to do this. There were two things that one should never mess with in Wushang City, and both had to do with Tianya. First, no one could mess with Tianya's cats, and if anyone dares to touch his cats, it would be like pulling the hair out of Tiger's head. The second one was, Tianya owned a jade necklace with the word Feng engraved on it. Everyone knew about it, but no one dared to touch it. Every time Tianya showed off, he would take out this jade necklace, claiming that it was personally created for his granddaughter. If he did not have a granddaughter, this jade necklace, he would not give it to anyone. Everyone said that Tianya would always bring that jade necklace with him, but does he really bring that with him? Feng Lianyi smirked. The sunset in Wushang City glowed warmly. Feng Ruqing suddenly stopped in her tracks. She raised her eyes and stared at the woman approaching her from not far away. Hellion Yu quickly followed her eyes and saw a girl in a long green dress heading toward them. Her sweet face changed dramatically, and she subconsciously took a few steps forward, trying to protect Feng Ruqing, who was behind her. Feng Lianyi, what are you doing here? Chapter 1581. Feng Lianyi's banquet. Feng Lianyi's eyes sank as she saw the worry on Hellion Yu's face. Over the years, she knew Hellion Yu very well. This girl had no friends since she was a child, and only Feng Lianqing would take care of her. She had also never seen Hellion Yu being nice to any woman. It seemed that Feng Ruqing was indeed powerful. Not only Feng Lianqing and the little prince, even this Hellion Yu was also enchanted by her. Sister Hellion, Feng Lianyi tried to control her emotions. She smiled pleasingly and walked toward Hellion Yu. I've thought about a lot of things these days, and I remembered all the things that General has taught me. I know that it was indeed my fault. So I came here today sincerely to meet Maiden Feng. Can Maiden Feng give me another chance? Her gaze was so sincere that one could not refuse it. But even a simple and brainless girl like Hellion Yu, after seeing the sudden change in Feng Lianyi, could not help but give her a suspicious glance, clearly not believing her words. Feng Lianyi, what else do you want to do? Helian Yu's face was slightly sunken, but before she could finish her words, the young girl's voice sounded behind her. Fine, I accept your apology. What? Helian Yu was stunned. She looked at Feng Ruqing, confused. Xiao Qing said, she accepts the apology from Feng Lianyi? Xiao Qing is the kind of person who curses someone for the rest of their lives if they cursed her once. Accepting an apology from Feng Lianyi? She could believe if other people did that, but Xiao Qing, a person who always held a grudge, forgiving someone else this easily? Feng Lianyi was stunned as well. She had already thought a lot of nice words to say if Feng Ruqing rejected her, but she had accepted it before she could say those words seriously. This demon is quite surprising. Me for extra chapters. But Feng Lianyi did not want to let this opportunity go. She cleared her mind and smiled widely. Maiden Feng, I think you have never visited General Manor, and I guess Brother Feng has never invited you. I wonder if I would have the honor to invite Maiden Feng to visit General Manor. The smile on Feng Lianyi's face was so sincere that no one could see any problem with it. No, Helian Yu snorted and refused without even thinking about it. Feng Lianyi is a bad girl. Who knows if she has planned something evil? Xiao Qing. Helian Yu turned her head and looked at Feng Ruqing. Grandfather Tian, you isn't in General Manor. There's no point in going there, and we might as well. I'll go. Feng Ruqing interrupted Helian Yu's words with a faint smile. I accept your invitation. Helian Yu was completely confused. Did Xiao Qing take the wrong medicine today? Xiao Qing, she was a little anxious, stared at Feng Lianyi fiercely, then turned to look at Feng Ruqing. Feng Lianyi is not a good person. She's so vicious, and she's worse than the little fatty. At least the little fatty has a good heart, but she always has bad intentions. Feng Lianyi's face darkened. She looked at Helian Yu coldly. If it were not for General, she would never have tolerated this woman slandering her like this in front of her. Chapter 1582. Feng Lianyi's Banquet. Who in this world doesn't know that Helian Yu of the Helian family has been bullying people and enraging gods? How dare you say I'm full of evil? Ridiculous. There was once only one evil person in Wushang City, Helian Yu, and now there was another one called Feng Ruqing. Maiden Feng. Feng Lianyi smiled faintly, restraining the hate in her heart. Tonight, I will hold a banquet at General Manor to express my apology to Maiden Feng, and I hope that Maiden Feng will come. Feng Ruqing smirked. Don't worry, I will go. With this assurance from Feng Ruqing, Feng Lianyi said no more. She smiled and turned around. But in just a few seconds, her smile had faded, and her face turned cold. Xiao Qing, Helian Yu's heart sank. I don't believe that Feng Lianyi would feel sorry for what she had done. If she is sincere, she won't harm the little fatty again. Helian Yu did not like the little fatty at first. She was also arrogant and domineering, and she was not used to seeing the same people as her. Besides, she always felt that the little fatty was trying to snatch Xiao Qing from her. However, because of Feng Ruqing, she and the little fatty could be considered companions now, not to mention that both of them hated Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi had tried to use her back then, and now she had harmed the little fatty. Anyway, Helian Yu was sure that Feng Lianyi was the person behind the little fatty's punishment. I'm tired. Feng Ruqing yawned lazily and smiled. I want to rest. I'm afraid I won't be able to get a good rest tonight. She left these words and no longer paid attention to the puzzled Helian Yu, slowly walking toward the manor. Helian Yu slightly frowned. She could not figure it out and no longer thought about it. It was night. The gentle moonlight poured down like water. Me for extra chapters. The banquet hall in General Manor was bustling. Young men were holding their folding fans, laughing cheerfully with the people next to them. The shy and crisp laughter of young girls was like bells that reverberated throughout the manor. Feng Lianyi sat with these young girls smilingly. Initially, with her identity, she would not be able to invite these people as guests, but who did not know that she was a member of General Manor, and who in this world dared to disrespect Tianya? The The people of Wushang City valued strong men. As a general, Tianyu was so powerful, and no one could take over his status in Land of No Return. Maiden Liani, why did you invite us here tonight? Could it be that General and Master Lianqing have returned? They all whispered to each other, not knowing why Feng Liani had called them here today. Feng Liani restrained her smirk and said, Gentlemen, I made a mistake some time ago. I'm sure you must have heard about it, when Brother Feng had almost harmed the little prince. I was worried and afraid that the emperor would punish Brother Feng, so I put all the blame on a girl. The people present were only half aware of this matter, but now that Feng Liani had said it in public, they were a bit surprised. But on the day when I went to apologize, that girl was annoyed and kicked me out, so I guess I was not sincere enough. I am holding this big banquet tonight for her to express my sincere apology. She planned the banquet at the very last minute. Fortunately, Feng Lianqing was not in general manner, so the servants would naturally listen to her. People always make mistakes. What Maiden Liani had done was not a big deal. But why does that girl keep bothering Maiden Liani? A young man filled with anger stood out among the crowd, speaking for Feng Liani. Master Zhang, who doesn't know that Maiden Liani is a nice girl? Maiden Liani personally went to that woman's place to apologize, and that girl still treated her like that. If she can't be nice with Maiden Liani, at least she should respect General Tianyu. After all, Maiden Liani is a member of General Manor. General is highly respected in Wushang City. Even the emperor admired him. I don't know where she found the courage to treat Maiden Liani like this. Feng Liani lowered her eyes and smirked. I know why she's so courageous. Suddenly, a voice rang out, causing everyone to look at the woman who had just spoken. The woman had a soft face, but she was not considered as a beauty. She pursed her lips and sighed helplessly. The woman you were talking about, I know her. Recently, my cousin Helian always hangs out with her all day long. I don't know what kind of mesmerizing drug she gave my cousin to make Helian obey her like that. Helian, are you telling the truth? A young man asked darkly. Helian smiled bitterly. I don't know the details. Back then, I didn't know what had happened. Yue was rarely at home. I didn't trust her, so I followed her to take a look, and later I found out that she was with that woman and that there were some spirit beasts in that woman's yard. Spirit beasts. The crowd recalled the day when the spirit beasts attacked the city and could not help but shudder. No wonder she is so daring to be so arrogant. I thought she was using those spirit beasts to threaten people, but her spirit beasts are not as strong as the people of General Manor. After all, those powerful spirit beasts in the Spirit Beast Mountain belong to the Nan family. Now it seems that it's because of Helian. Tisk, what good can come out of hanging around that little witch Helian? Both of them are just the same. Look, Maiden Liani has organized a big banquet to apologize to her today, and she's late. Me for extra chapters. After hearing these words, Feng Lianyu's face sank slightly. Could it be that Feng Ruqing was not coming? No. If she did not come, what would happen to her plan? And how she was going to ruin her? They'll send someone to take a look. Feng Liani chuckled. Maybe she overslept before she came. It's normal for a pregnant woman to sleep so much. The young man who spoke for her just now could not help but sneer. Even a pregnant woman can be so lacking in virtue, bullying a woman as good as Maiden Liani. I don't think whatever she is carrying in her belly is good either, and whether she can carry to term is not yet certain. Maiden Liani had come to the door to admit her mistake, but she kicked her out. As expected, those who hung out with Helian were all rude. Having a vicious mother like her was so unlucky. It seemed that the child she was carrying in her womb would not be carried to term safely. Chapter 1584. Feng Lianyu's banquet for the others were slightly stunned when they heard the young man's words. Except for Helian and Feng Liani. Those people all felt that his words were a bit too much. That girl was not a good person, but the child was innocent. It was not fair to curse an unborn child like that. Why should the child bear the mother's fault? However, when they saw the anger in the young man's eyes, they sighed softly. Zhang Yang was the weakest of them all. Rumor had it that Tianya was so strict with Feng Liani because he loved her like his own granddaughter. As such, Zhang Yang naturally wanted to use this opportunity to please Feng Liani to get close to General Tianya. He believed that if Tianya could help him, his cultivation speed would become faster, and he would become stronger. Master Zhang, Feng Liani smiled faintly. It was my fault, and it has nothing to do with her. If she rejects my apology, I will use my sincerity to touch her. I believe she will understand, and as for her child, Feng Liani paused and smiled helplessly. Whether it's alive or dead, it has nothing to do with us. Master Zhang should not drag an innocent child into this matter. Zhang Yang smiled and said, Maiden Liani, someone like that is not worthy of you speaking for her. She's cruel and vicious, no different from that little witch from the Hellion family. As soon as he said those words, a brick flew in from the door and hit Zhang Yang's head. With a thud, Zhang Yang's vision turned blank, and he almost passed out. Blood flowed from his head. He covered the back of his head and turned around furiously. Suddenly, he was stunned, unable to say any word. The others also turned their gaze, and the entire hall became silent. The little witch of the Hellion family was still holding a brick in her hand, standing in the doorway fiercely. Her eyes were filled with rage as she glared at Zhang Yang murderously. Me for extra chapters. However, the people looked past the little witch and at the other two people behind her. The moonlight was clear and cold. A young girl in a red dress, standing in the moonlight, looked so stunning. Her beauty was so captivating that even the cold moonlight could not dim that. The man next to her was dressed in white, as handsome as an immortal, noble and cold. Who did you just say was cruel and vicious? Hellion Yu's eyes were filled with rage. Who is the little witch that you're talking about just now? Zhang Yang, are you itching again? Do you need me to hang you up and continue whipping you? Zhang Yang did not dare to speak. Between Hellion Yu and Feng Liani, he would always stand on Feng Liani's side. After all, Hellion Yu was from the Hellion family and Feng Liani. Her surname was Feng, which was the same as Feng Lianqing. However, that old master of the Hellion family was so unreasonable. He was simply inhumane. Therefore, facing Hellion Yu's anger, he did not dare to resist in any way. Fortunately, Hellion Yu came a bit late and did not hear his previous words of cursing the child. Otherwise, his life would have been ended by her tonight. Hellion, Feng Ruqing called faintly. Hellion Yu immediately dropped the brick and obediently stood next to Feng Ruqing. Her big eyes blinked cutely like a little puppy. Chapter 1585. Feng Lianya's Banquet vs. Shaoqing. Feng Ruqing glanced at her smilingly. Do you want to see a good show? Yes. Shaoqing said that if she followed her tonight, she could watch a good show. So she tagged along even though she did not want to see Feng Liani anymore. Then stand aside. All right, Shaoqing. Hellion Yu was so obedient, and if she had a tail, it would be wagging. Of course, Zhang Yang was so lucky that Feng Ruqing and Nan Xian did not hear his previous words. Otherwise, this banquet would have come to an end today. The crowd was dumbfounded as they looked at the well-behaved and soft little girl. Everyone called her the Little Witch because no one in Wushang City could control her. The old master of the Hellion family had always supported her. Even Tian, you could not control her, and no one had ever seen her being so obedient even when she was Feng Lianqing. Are you Hellion Yu? Among the crowd, a girl opened her mouth to ask weakly. Hellion Yu glared at her, frightening that girl into immediately shutting her mouth. That's right. She's exactly Hellion Yu. Just look at her fierce eyes. Feng Ruqing raised her eyes and looked at the little girl who had just asked that question. Well, she's cute and looks like Qing Ling. Hellion Yu, be gentle with girls, Feng Ruqing said, expressionlessly. Hellion Yu and Nan Xian were stunned. Somehow, that girl suddenly felt a cold ice sweep over to her after hearing Feng Ruqing's words. She trembled and hugged her arms. However, she could not help but look up at Feng Ruqing again, confused. It seems like this girl, she's not as evil as they said. She and Hellion Yu, We're not the same person. All right, Xiao Qing. Helian Yu was a little reluctant, but she still listened to Feng Ruqing. Helian Yu actually looked like Gu Yi. But, of course, Feng Ruqing turned to Zhang Yang and the others. You can be fierce when it comes to men. You can kill them after this banquet ends. Everyone was speechless. Me for extra chapters. Feng Ruqing continued. You kill people, and I will bury that body for you. Don't worry, just do it boldly. I'll back you up if anything happens. Helian Yu was slightly stunned and smiled at Feng Ruqing. In this life, no one had ever said such words to her before. Some people really need to be beaten up, and she never felt like she was beating up the wrong people. But everyone except her grandfather would blame her. Her grandfather would indeed tolerate all of her actions, protecting her for so many years, but the only one who said such things to her was Feng Ruqing. Helian Yu lowered her head, bitterness spreading in her mouth. I wish Feng Ruqing was a man. What she wanted to say was, if only Feng Lianqing could be the same as Feng Ruqing, that would be great. But she did not want to mention Feng Lianqing again in front of so many people, so she changed her words. Who knew that her words had caused Nanxian to misunderstand her? Nanxian glanced at Helian Yu coldly, pulling Feng Ruqing into his arms. It seemed like he would have to ask the old master to give him a third uncle and take this woman away. Just having a second uncle was not enough. Maiden Feng Lianyi sensed that the hall had suddenly become very quiet, and the people no longer spoke much. She was a little anxious, so she stood up and smiled. Since you're here, we can start the banquet now. I'm so grateful that Maiden Feng is willing to forgive me. Wait, Feng Ruqing suddenly spoke. She frowned. When did I say that I forgive you? Feng Lianyi was stunned, her expression changing slightly. You came to General Manor. Doesn't it mean you have accepted my apology? Oh, Feng Ruqing calmly responded. I just want to look around. When did I ever accept your apology? You only asked me to come to General Manor. When did you say you were going to apologize? Feng Lianyi's expression changed once again. She pursed her lip tightly. Maiden Feng, we've agreed. If you come to General Manor, it means that you've accepted my apology. Why are you not keeping your word? Feng Lianyi. Helian Yu was furious and jumped up. Don't you dare accuse my Xiao Qing. When did you ever say you wanted to apologize? How would I not have heard about that? At this moment, the entire banquet hall was silent. Those young girls and young men were also hindered by Helian Yu and did not dare to speak. Otherwise, they would end up like the Jia family. The Jia family had tried to harm Helian Yu. The old master of the Helian family found out about it and destroyed the Jia family's legacy. Perhaps the Jia family would not be able to recover for another 100 years. If they helped Feng Lianyi this time, Helian Yu would be mad and their family would be in danger. Zhang Yang had already taken a spirit herb to stop the blood in his head. He then looked around and saw no one defending Feng Lianyi. Without thinking too much, he stood up and said, Helian Yu, watch your mouth. Maiden Lianyi is so sincere to apologize. Why do you still hate her? None of these people dared to speak out against Helian Yu, and this was his best chance. Maiden Lianyi will see how loyal I am. Later, she will definitely praise me in front of General, and my Zhang family status will rise dramatically. To him, Helian Yu was an outsider, which was why General was more tolerant of her. And of course, General would be more strict with Feng Lianyi because she was his family. Me for extra chapters. From General's attitude, it was obvious whose side he would take if Helian Yu had a conflict with Feng Lianyi. Helian Yu looked at Zhang Yang before lowering her head, trying to pick up the bricks on the ground. The moment Helian Yu was about to pick it up, Feng Ruqing raised her hand and stopped her, smiling. Helian, this brick, it won't work. His head is a bit hard. Smashing him with this will not kill him. Helian Yu stood up and looked at Feng Ruqing blankly. What should we do then? It's simple, boom. At that moment, countless vines spread out under Zhang Yang's feet. The vines were much thicker than before, wrapping Zhang Yang's feet and bring him into the air. Zhang Yang's body made a hole in the hall's roof and suddenly disappeared. It's finally quiet. A good show was about to start, and she did not want anyone to ruin it. All right. Feng Ruching clapped her hands and turned to look at those in the banquet hall who were stunned. Can we start? I'm a little hungry. Feng Lianya's face darkened, but she still forced herself to smile. Maiden Feng, please sit down. It's a pity that there's only one seat here. Sister Helian, you can sit next to Sister Ing. 2 seats are left in the front seat, but the front seat is for this manor's owner. Maiden Feng, if you're not willing to sit with me, then Master Nanxian can sit here. Chapter 1587. A moment of shame as she spoke cautiously, looking very guilty. Even if Nanxian did not like her, she would use every means to separate them, even only for a moment. Nanxian looked up at the 2 front empty seats before turning sideways to look at the other empty chair. After a silent moment, he slowly stepped forward, raised his hand, and pulled a young man who was busy eating, fiercely throwing him out. Helian Yu was dumbfounded. Suddenly, after she regained her senses, she rushed over to the other person in the seat and slapped the table with her palms. This is my seat. You get the hell over to Helian Ing. The man gulped, shocked by her words, and hurriedly picked up the plate in front of him, heading toward the other side of the seat without looking back. Helian Yu turned to Feng Lianyi and said proudly, Good. Now there are 3 empty seats here. Feng Lianyi's smile looked a little stiff as she clenched her fists tightly. Maiden Feng, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. I didn't mean anything bad, so I hope Maiden Feng will not blame me. Feng Ruching yawned lazily and ignored her. She then turned to the handsome man sitting next to her. Nanxian, I'm hungry. Well, let's eat first. Nanxian raised his hand and caressed Feng Ruching's head, smilingly. His smile was as gentle as the moonlight. Feng Ruching did not say anything more, lifted her skirt, and took her seat. Nanxian sat next to her, but his cold eyes were fixed on Feng Lianyi. He glanced at her coldly and turned to the young girl next to him. Chinger said there's a good show to watch and won't let me do anything. Seeing that no one was paying any attention to her, Feng Lianyi smiled awkwardly, turned around, and walked toward the front seat. However, before she could sit down properly, her chair suddenly smashed to pieces. She reached out in a panic, pressed down on the table, but unfortunately, the table flew over and the dishes landed all over her. How wretched and embarrassing it was. Everyone was stunned, and no one noticed that Nanxian had withdrawn his hands me for extra chapters. Chinger said to not ruin the show, but I guess this will not count as ruining the show. He did not disobey his Qing. Maiden Lianyi. The servants were shocked and quickly rushed forward to help Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi finally managed to stand up straight, but she did not notice that the ground was slippery and slipped again. His dress became dirty and messy. A soft sound of laughter came from the quiet crowd. Helian Yu laughed out loud and pointed at Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi, you have done too much evil. This is simply a little punishment for you. Ha ha ha. Feng Lianyi clenched her fists tighter as she fought with all her might to restrain her anger. However, her eyes were like swords as she glanced at Feng Ruching angrily. It was this woman who did it. She was just offering a seat to her husband, and she had deliberately retaliated against her. What was the difference between such a jealous woman and Helian Yu? Chapter 1588. A moment of shame, 2 birds of the same feather flocked together. Nanxian, Feng Ruching smiled. The quality of these chairs is too poor. It seems I have to be more careful. Nanxian calmly said, You're thin, so you'll be fine. She's too fat, and the chair can't withstand her weight. Besides, you're so beautiful that even a chair can't bear to drop you. She's ugly, so of course, she won't get any pity even from chair. The crowd was stunned. This man looks like a thoughtful man, but why do his words come out so harshly? Feng Lianyi bunched her sleeves tightly. The situation embarrassed her greatly, and with the mess she was in, she could not wait to find a hole to hide in immediately. She took a deep breath and laughed awkwardly. Everyone, I'm really sorry. I'm going to change my dress and will come later. Feng Lianyi no longer wanted to be there and quickly dashed out of the banquet hall. After Feng Lianyi left, the banquet hall became lively again. The little girl from just now, somewhat, rushed over to Feng Rooking's side. You are not the same as what the rumors say. Feng Ruching turned her head to look at this little girl. The little girl smiled. She did not even notice Xian's cold face. That day, when you attacked Wushang City with your spirit beasts, they all said you were vicious and evil, but now you look good. Feng Rooking's face softened. She leaned back against her chair and smiled faintly. Vicious and evil. That's right. You come and talk to me like this. Are you not afraid of Feng Lianyi? The little girl was stunned. Why? She said she came to you to apologize. Feng Ruching shrugged and smiled at the little girl. The little girl bit her lip. And I don't think you're a bad woman with what you've said to young lady Helian just now. Helian Yu, such an arrogant and overbearing person, was like a good little girl in front of Feng Ruching. Only Feng Ruching could restrain her temper. That was why the little girl felt like Feng Ruching was not a bad person. Me for extra chapters. Maiden Feng Ruching frowned. Call me Lady Nan. After hearing this, Nan Xian's cold face immediately softened a little. Yes, call her Lady Nan. The little girl was about to continue speaking when she suddenly saw that Feng Lianyi had changed into a beautiful dress and walked in through the door. When she saw the little girl standing next to Feng Ruching, she stared at her fiercely, causing the little girl to tremble and look confused. Isn't Maiden Lianyi here to apologize? Why do I feel like she hates Lady Nan, now that everyone is here? So we can start now. Feng Lianyi smirked as she walked toward the front seat. Who says everyone's here? However, before she finished her word, she was interrupted by a faint laugh. Startled, she turned back blankly, looking at Feng Ruching. Suddenly, under the silence of the night, a sharp voice spoke, echoing across the sky and into everyone's ears. The Emperor and the Empress have arrived. The little prince and the fourth princess have arrived. Chapter 1589. A moment of shame. Feng Lianyi's face changed dramatically. She clenched her fists tightly, and her breathing grew heavier. She had not invited anyone from the palace. Why would they come? There was a sudden stir in the banquet hall. This is an apology banquet held by Feng Lianyi. Why is the emperor informed about it? What does this mean? Does it mean that General is really grooming Feng Lianyi as his heir? Who knew that in Wushang City, though General had accepted Feng Lianxing as his disciple, General was more interested in girls. Feng Lianyi's strength was honestly not as good as Feng Lianxing's, yet was much better than ordinary people. Moreover, General had always been strict with her, even stricter than with Feng Lianxing. Even if she had not taken Feng Lianyi as his disciple, she was still an important member of General Manor. Why has the emperor come? The people in the crowd began to whisper. I didn't see the emperor at Feng Lianxing's banquets back then. Could it be that the general really wants to make Feng Lianyi the heir? What about Master Lianxing? He's General Tian Ya's disciple. I don't know. Besides, Maiden Lianyi is like Tian Ya's adopted granddaughter. It's just that General's ancestral tablets aren't here, and, therefore, couldn't get her into the family. Thus, he had never declared it. Think about it. Maiden Lianyi is not a servant or a guard in General Manor, and everyone else calls her Maiden Lianyi. What is it if it's not a granddaughter's identity? Indeed, between the disciple and granddaughter, of course, the granddaughter is more important. Everyone looked at each other, let out a sigh. Someone winked at the little girl from before, indicating that she should keep a distance from Feng Ruching. The little girl was a bit hesitant, but in the end, she did not move away. General Tian Ya was not rude and protective. He had always been a good and honest man. They were no longer allowed to think about it, as Qi Feng had already brought the Empress and the others in. Me for extra chapters. Apart from Feng Ruching and Nan Xian, who was still calmly enjoying the feast, everyone else had kneeled on the ground. Respect to your majesty, Empress, the little prince, and the fourth princess. The voice echoed throughout the hall. The people who followed behind Qi Feng were the eunuchs and guards of the palace and the old housekeeper of General Manor. He could not help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead as he panicked. Today, Feng Liani had suddenly come and told him that she wanted to hold a banquet. He thought it was only a small meeting for the young girls, so he did not care much about it. However, he did not expect that it would draw the emperor and the empress here. "Please come." Qi Feng made an inviting gesture and looked back at the empress. "Empress, you and I." The empress walked away from Qi Feng, not even sparing him a glance. All eyes were on her as she smiled and walked toward Feng Ruqing. "Maiden Feng, I heard that Feng Liani is holding a banquet to apologize to you today. I was worried that Feng Liani is using her power to force you to accept her apology, so I come to check on you." There was silence in the banquet hall. Some people had stood up when they heard the empress' words. They began to shiver from the shock of all that was happening. The empress, she came to back Feng Ruqing up? Didn't they make a lot of mess at the city gates that day? Even if that was all Feng Liani's fault, they had still embarrassed the empress. Why is the emperor so kind to her now? Chapter 1590. A moment of shame for Qi Feng was a bit embarrassed. He understood that the empress was still angry, so he did not say much and simply turned to look at the little fatty and Qi Qiner. "Where, Qiner, you guys follow Father, Lady Nan, Sister Xiaoqing." The little fatty and Qi Qiner were filled with joy and swiftly ran to Feng Ruqing. Of course, neither of them dared to act rashly in front of Nan Xian and could only look at Helian Yu. "Give me that seat." The little fatty raised his chin exuberantly. Qi Qiner did not say anything but looked at Helian Yu unblinkingly, hoping that she would give the seat to them. If it were in the past, even if Helian Yu were arrogant, she would still be quite restrained in front of the emperor and the empress. But now, she slammed her hands on the table and growled. "Why should I give you my seat? I stole this seat by my own merit. Why should I give it to you? Who asked you to be late?" The little fatty snapped. "I'm the prince. You're the minister's daughter, and I'm sure it'll be the one who deserves to sit next to Lady Nan. The prince deserves to be on the throne. Why are you taking this seat from me? Isn't there a seat next to Feng Liani? Just go to her." Helian Yu snorted. The little fatty looked back at Feng Liani with disgust in his eyes and turned his head again. "I don't want an ugly and fierce-looking servant to sit with me." Qi Qiner also raised her head stubbornly. "I don't want to be with Feng Liani either. I want to sit next to Sister Xiaoqing." She had almost died before, but Feng Ruqing had saved her life. It was because of this incident that had made Qi Qiner very dependent on her. She had always only known how to endure, had actually dared to argue in public. "All right, all of you stop arguing," the empress smiled faintly. "Maiden Helian, there is something that I would like to talk to Maiden Feng. Could you excuse us, please?" Well, Helian Yu still had respect for the empress. She bit her lip and looked at a young man sitting next to her. "Me for extra chapters." The young man had just put a mouthful of pastry in his mouth, but when his eyes met Helian Yu's, he almost swallowed it in one mouthful and nearly choked to death. Young Lady Helian, can you move, please?" Helian Yu was more polite this time, not as fierce as before. The young man was about to cry. "But there are no more seats here." "Oh, it's all right. Xiaoqing taught me a secret for cultivating. She said if one eats standing up, one can cultivate faster. Do you want to try it?" Helian Yu smiled. It would have been fine if she was more fierce, but this smile scared the young man, so he immediately stood up. The young man smiled helplessly. "Please sit here, young Lady Helian." Feng Ruqing sat in between Nan Xian and the empress. Sitting next to the empress in order were Helian Yu, the little fatty, and Qi Qiner. Only the emperor was left standing alone in the banquet hall, looking somewhat uncomfortable. There was only one seat left at the moment, which was next to Feng Liani. Qi Feng still understood some sense of propriety. He smiled and turned to Feng Liani. "Maiden Liani, could you please stand up? After all, the consorts in the harem could not sit next to me at dinner. Just now, young Lady Helian said that standing could help you in your cultivation and help to control your temper." Chapter 1591. General will seek vengeance for her eye at this moment, Everyone was subconsciously looking at Feng Liani. Feng Liani was somewhat speechless as she stood there, stiffened. A few moments later, she finally smiled and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Helianing had not said a word. She only stared at Helian Yu and Feng Ruching coldly. No one knew what she was thinking about. "Today I have heard that Maiden Liani is hosting a banquet, and I have come to take a look." Qi Fang's face was cold. "There is no need for anyone to be too formal. Maiden Liani, you can start now." "Yes, Your Majesty." Feng Liani looked unhappy. She had been embarrassed for so many times in front of so many people. Fortunately, Qi Fang's last words relieved her. She cleared her throat and said, "Since everyone is already here, then bang." Feng Ruching suddenly slammed her plate on the ground. This sudden action frightened everyone. Even Qi Fang frowned at her. A pregnant woman, yet she still has such a temper. I don't know how her husband could put up with her. "I've just told you. Who said that everyone is already here?" Feng Ruching slowly stood up, expressionlessly. Feng Lian's face darkened. "Maiden Feng, what exactly are you doing? I said no one could start the feast until everyone is here." Feng Lian's gaze changed slightly. She was about to open her mouth when she saw a little boy with a pink carved jade carrying a young man walk in through the door. This little boy was quite good-looking and cute, just like a little girl. It seemed that he was quite strong, as he could carry such a heavy young man. However, the moment Feng Liani saw this young man, her face changed dramatically. She even looked panicked, but forced herself to calm down. "Maiden Feng, what are you doing?" Feng Ruching glanced at Feng Liani coldly. "Me for extra chapters." Before she opened her mouth, a cold voice sounded from the side. "Call her Lady Nan." Feng Liani was speechless. She clenched her fists tightly, not uttering a word. "It's you." The little fatty suddenly stood up angrily. "Mother, this is the bastard who pushed my sister back then." The Empress' eyes turned cold as her gaze also fell on the young man. The entire banquet hall became quiet. Everyone's eyes were fixed upon the young man. That young man got up from the ground, crying as he pounced over to Feng Liani. "Maiden Liani, save me. I've listened to your order. You can't leave me alone. You said you would protect me. And as long as I followed your order, the imperial family would not do anything to me. So please save me now." Feng Lian's face darkened, trembling with anger. She kicked the young man aside and snapped. "What are you talking about? I don't even know you. I was kind enough to help you the other day, and now you're helping someone else to harm me. Damn it, this bastard is still alive. I should have just finished him off that day. And this bastard is so stupid. As long as he shut his mouth, there was no way the Emperor could have blamed her. But now he had shown up and exposed her. "Maiden Liani," the young man raged, "I wouldn't have taken the spirit herb you gave me if I hadn't been stuck at King Warrior Tier for so many years. Now that everything has been revealed, you plan to make me a scapegoat. You said you had a way to get me out of this." He took out a spirit herb from his pouch and threw it at Feng Lian's face. "I don't want to lose my life just for a piece of spirit herb. I don't want your spirit herb. You must save me." Who was not afraid of death. The young man also understood the consequences of what he had done. Now he had to put all the blame on Feng Liani so that he could save his life. The spirit herb hit Feng Liani on her face. It was so painful, but she could not stop the panic inside her. Her fists were clenched tighter, and her nails dug painfully into her flesh. "Your Majesty." Feng Liani turned around and faced Qi Fang respectfully. "If you don't trust me, then think about General Tianya. I know I have made mistakes, and between Big Brother Feng and morality, I chose Big Brother Feng, but am not the kind of person who would do such a thing for my gain. Besides, the little prince has no grudge against me, so why should I take revenge on him?" She was trembling inside, but had to remain calm. "I beg your Majesty to investigate this matter. Someone is trying to harm me." Qi Fang remained silent, and his face darkened. If what had happened to his child was planned by somebody, then he had almost killed his daughter and beaten his son, Feng Liani. The Empress' gaze burned with anger. "So it was you behind all of this? I've said that I will definitely send whoever dares to bully my son or daughter to hell. Her words carried a sense of intense hatred, making Feng Lianya's face turn pale. She lowered her head and said, I will not admit something that I didn't do. Someone must have framed me for this. Feng Ruqing had an apple in her hand. She took a bite and looked at Feng Lianyi smilingly. Me for extra chapters. Feng Lianyi glanced at Feng Ruqing fiercely. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Feng, Ru, Qing, I won't let you go. Your Majesty, I know that I have offended maiden, Lady Nan. So, of course, Lady Nan hates me. I don't know what tactics she has used to have someone set me up, but I have not done it. She lifted her head and hid the resentment in her eyes. She now looked like an innocent girl, making people doubt the young man's words. Feng Lianyi was not the type of person who would deny her mistakes. If she had done it, she would indeed have admitted it. Besides, General Tianya was such an upright man, and Feng Lianyi had grown up with him, so she would not harm someone just to avenge herself. And she would never have dared to harm the little prince and the princess. Indeed, she had done something wrong before, but that was all because of Feng Lianqing. She was trying to protect Feng Lianqing and had blamed another person. With Feng Lianya's personality, she would not do such a thing for her own good. Feng Ruqing slowly stood up from her seat and smiled at Feng Lianyi. You've never harmed anyone before, right? Feng Lianyi was stunned and pursed her lips. Lady Nan, I told you I didn't do it. Chapter 1593. General will seek vengeance for her 3. The people behind you probably don't have the brains to give you any good ideas, right? Feng Ruqing asked smilingly. Feng Lianya's expression changed dramatically, and she looked at Feng Ruqing with fear in her eyes. It's impossible. How did she know? Is she referring to General Tianya? Yes, it must be General Tianya. Lady Nan, suddenly, a sword light flew over. By the time Feng Lianyi noticed it, it was too late to dodge. The sword light rushed toward her and sliced her neck, leaving a cut on her jaw. But that was only a small cut. She would have died had the sword light had sliced through her neck. The crowd was startled, and their eyes all turned to the man on the seat. The man's robe was as white as snow, cold and indifferent. When Qing speaks, the mouth of anyone who speaks will end up like this. Feng Lianyi closed her mouth and trembled. The jealousy that she felt right now was like ants gnawing at her heart, making it unbearable. In this life, she had never cared about any man. Nanxian was the first. He was such a beautiful man, she had immediately fallen for him when she saw him back then. But this man, he only held a torch for Feng Ruqing, and he had also embarrassed her so many times for Feng Ruqing. If she were Feng Ruqing, how could she still look for another man? She wandered around in front of Big Brother Feng, and the kids like the little prince were also swooning over her. Me for extra chapters. Therefore, Feng Lianyi could never understand why Nanxian loved this woman. Such a woman was not worthy of him at all. Feng Lianyi lifted her head. She smiled bitterly as her fingers brushed the bleeding cut on her jaw. Feng Ruqing squatted down and slowly picked up the spirit herb from the ground. This spirit herb was like a rose, red and bright. But it was not a rose, because there was a vermilion red fruit that seemed as vivid as blood in the center of it. Grade, 7 lost fruit. Empress called the Prime Minister over and asked him to check if someone has gone to General Manor's storehouse to steal this lost fruit. Feng Lianya's face changed slightly. Her expression suddenly became tense, and the panic in her eyes had become somewhat impossible to conceal. Feng Ruqing took the lost fruit and smiled. Grade, 7 lost fruit. TSK, a king warrior, still can't withstand the power of this lost fruit. Fortunately, you haven't taken it yet. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you would have already died violently on the spot. The young man was stunned, and his face turned pale. He then rushed toward Feng Lianyi furiously. Feng Lianyi dodged to the side and kicked the young man several meters away. The young man spat out a mouthful of blood and raised his eyes, staring hard at Feng Lianyi. You want to kill me? You actually want to kill me? Feng Lianyi, you are so vicious. You will surely get your karma. Ha ha. The young man laughed wildly. His smile was so horrifying, full of resentment. Feng Ruqing smirked. Feng Lianyi, if I were you, I wouldn't even have wasted this grade 7 lost fruit. I would have finished him off on the spot. You really haven't done much harm before. You're inexperienced. Hearing Feng Ruqing's words, Feng Lianyi's head exploded with rage, and her eyes were bloodshot. All the calmness that she had tried to fake in front of these people disappeared completely. Chapter 1594. General will seek vengeance for her for Feng Ruqing. You're the one framing me. You're the one trying to harm me. If General Tianyi knew about this, he would never let you and your people go. Ha ha ha. She knew that if the housekeeper checked the storehouse, he would definitely notice that she had gone to get the lost fruit. This time, she could not escape from this mess. However, if General were back, he would not let these people who were harming her go, especially Feng Ruqing. General Tianyi was a man of integrity. If she had made a mistake, he would punish her and even expel her from the manor. But, after all, she had been with General Tianyi for nearly 20 years. Even if one lived with a cat for 20 years, it would still have a strong bond, not to mention a person. No matter what mistake she had made this time, General Tianyi would not stand by and watch these people try to kill her. If Feng Ruqing killed her before General Tianyi returned, then General would definitely avenge her and kill Feng Ruqing. Seeing Feng Lianyi's angry and fearful expression, Qi Feng suddenly understood something. His face sank, and his voice was cold and harsh. Feng Lianyi, is it you who wants to harm you, heir? Up to this moment, without having to look into anything else, one could understand that this matter was definitely related to Feng Lianyi. Feng Lianyi laughed. Your Majesty, I am a member of General Manor and General Tianyi. He prioritizes his family over everything. Do you think, between Tianling Kingdom and I, who will General Tianyi choose? If General Tianyi leaves this kingdom, then when the 4 kingdoms come to attack, Your Majesty, who will you send to save your kingdom? Qi Fang's face darkened. And as I said, I didn't do it. So it's up to Your Majesty to choose to trust this woman or me. She raised her hand and pointed at Feng Ruqing, the coldness that radiated from her eyes, causing the crowd to tremble. Nanxian glanced coldly as Feng Lianyi pointed at Feng Ruqing. He suddenly raised her hand, and a gust of wind blew past. Feng Lianyi fell hard to the ground, and her arms were twisted, causing her awful pain. Cold sweat broke out over her face. Your finger almost touched Feng Ruqing. Make sure it won't happen again. Feng Lianyi's face turned pale, and she bit hard her lips without uttering a word. She somehow felt like her arm was broken. Qi Fang's face sank. It was rare for him not to speak for Feng Lianyi. Me for extra chapters. This time, Feng Lianyi had really crossed the line. His son had been framed, and if he tried to back up the person who had injured his son, what would his people say about him? Between the ruler and the minister, the ruler must be honored first. Besides, Feng Lianyi was not even a minister. Guard! The Empress' voice was laced with anger as she said coldly, Take Feng Lianyi out and behead her. Whoosh! Everyone could feel the coldness in her words. The Empress was clearly furious this time, and no one dared to plead for Feng Lianyi. Empress, Qi Feng frowned. We'd better put Feng Lianyi in prison first, and we'll deal with her when Tianyi returns. Tianyi has always had integrity and would not protect her after what she has done. The Empress sneered. Since General Tianyi won't protect her, there's no difference if we punish her now. I was planning to finish her off that day, but you had stopped me and asked to wait for Tianyi. What happened after that? She almost killed Qiner. Empress. Qi Feng sounded helpless. He wanted to wait for Tianyi because he respected him. If they settled Feng Lianyi without waiting for Tianyi, Tianyi might think that the people of Tianling Kingdom did not respect him. And if Tianyi left, there was really no one to fight for his kingdom when the other 4 kingdoms attacked. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.